This is Chris, and this is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 6 Episode 3 Oathbreaker breakdown, and I gotta say, I got mixed emotions about it. This was kind of a roller coaster of an episode, had its good moments, had its bad moments, and we did get to see the Tower of Joy Part 1 of 2 apparently. Bran's storyline has become my favorite of the season, but we did get to see Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, confirmed, and I believe we also saw his magical sword Dawn forged from the meteorite. Let's break it down. Alright, let's jump right in. Obviously, there will be spoilers and speculation, so if you don't want to know anything going into this episode, please click away. Spoiler warning. Anyway, let's jump right in. We open up at the wall, and Jon is waking up from his long nap. Apparently, he's still dazed and confused, and Davos obviously never left the room because he turns around like, what the fuck? It worked. And as Jon tries to catch his breath, Mel comes back in the room and says, oh shit, it worked. She found her religion again, obviously, and she started asking him, what did you see once you were killed? And basically, Jon says, I saw nothing. I'd replied to many comments in the last couple of weeks saying that I think he would basically be the same character. This may actually make him kind of live life to the fullest, carpe diem, and be slightly different, perhaps a little less honorable. But Mel does come right out and say, Stannis wasn't the prince that was promised, but somebody has to be. Obviously, she's already put this label on Jon. This kind of goes back to what I said a long time ago about the Azor Ahai prince that was promised, Stannis announced the world, all these different prophecies. I believe they're all the same thing. The name Azor Ahai comes from Ashai, so now that she said the prince that was promised, basically already slapped that label on Jon, they did kind of confirm those are the same thing. So after Jon wakes up, has a drink, and smokes a cigarette, he walks outside. All the wildlings and Team Jon, as far as the Night's Watch members that are left, are out in the yard, and they're all looking at him like, holy shit, like they just saw a damn ghost. And he kind of makes his way dramatically through the crowd and walks up to Tormund, and Tormund said, they think you're some kind of god coming back from the dead. And he says, I'm no god. But then he says, you know what? I know you're not a god. I saw you peck her. Damn, Kit. And then he walks up to Ed, giving him a big hug, and Ed says, your eyes are still brown. Is that you in there? Referring to the fact that if he was a white or another, he would have blue eyes. And Jon says, yeah, I think so. Makes a little joke about don't burn my body quite yet. And then Ed kind of reaffirms, wait a minute, that was funny. Are you sure that's you? I guess with all he's been through, Jon hadn't had much of a sense of humor lately. But it is cool to see Jon up and walking around again. And then we flash over to the scene we saw from the trailer with all the boats, and this is in fact Sam and Gilly on their way to Old Town. Sam's basically sitting there about to puke, and Gilly's IQ is apparently going up because she makes a joke to Sam about, I used to think the sea was called the sea because it was as far as you could see. See? Sam goes on to tell her that there are no women allowed at the Citadel, and then proceeds to say, I'm taking you to my family, so this introduces the fact that we're going to meet the Tarleys. So his plan is here to drop Gilly off and little Sam as his bastard son, and then he pukes again. And then boy oh boy, we get to the Tower of Joy, and I was super excited about this one. We see Ned and the gang riding up towards the Tower of Joy, and as I said in previous videos, there are only 6 people here in the show. In the books, there are 7 members with Ned's party, and they ride up, and there's only 2 Kingsguard in the show versus 3 in the books. Budget problems. As well as still keep the ratio kind of intact to make it a better fight because they wanted to show off how badass these Kingsguard were. Bran says, that's my father, and Bloodraven does confirm that that is Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. And the other guy I'm assuming is Gerald Hightower, not Oswald Went, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. So they basically have the same talk as they did in the books, where Ned's saying, I was looking for you guys on the Trident. Sir Arthur Dayne says, we were here because our Prince Rhaegar commanded us to be here. Ned says, where's my sister? And then Sir Arthur Dayne wishes Ned and his party well in the wars to come and says, now it begins. And Ned comes back with the same line that he says in the books, no, now it ends. And then we saw one of the baddest fight scenes I think we've seen in Game of Thrones as far as a small battle versus a big field battle. Sir Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower versus Ned Stark, Hallan Reed and company. And this was a 6-on-2 fight. It was pretty badass. Gerald Hightower went down pretty quick. And I gotta say, I wasn't really sure about the dual wielding thing here because in the books he uses one sword, Dawn, and there's no mention of dual wielding, but this came off on TV pretty damn good. It really looked badass to me. He was flipping swords around, and after Hightower went down pretty quickly, Hallan Reed got injured. It was basically a 5-on-1 fight, and that dual wielding came in really, really handy. And then it comes down to Sir Arthur Dayne and Ned, and Sir Arthur Dayne disarms Ned, and he's about to kill him when Hallan Reed jumps up and stabs him in the back of the neck. Ned picks up his sword and finishes the job and cuts him down, and then we hear a scream in the tower, and Ned heads up toward the steps as the young Hallan goes and checks on his men, and then Bran says, what's in the tower? And says, Father, and Ned actually turns around and hears him. And then he proceeds up the steps, and they fucking cut it off. They didn't finish up the Tower of Joy, so apparently going to drag this out a little bit. I kind of had a feeling they would. They wasn't going to get this RLJ reveal. He's got Dawn and he's dual wielding.
No. Now it ends.
Straight out of books. Oh shit! He's taking on all these motherfuckers. Oh shit, man, come on! Before I forget, did we see the sword Dawn that everybody wanted to see? I think we did. I had said in a trailer breakdown that one of the swords he was carrying looked pretty bright and white to me, although it certainly could have been a contrast with the fresh blood on it. But if you look here at the sigil here, when he slams the sword in the ground before talking to Ned and company, it looks to be a rising sun, as in Dawn. So this was in fact the Sword Dome, but at least they threw that in there as an Easter egg for us book nerds. But I gotta say, I was kind of disappointed about this one aspect of the Tower of Joy, and that is when Bloodraven and Bran are talking right before the fight. Bran says, "He's better than my father," and Bloodraven says, "Much better." And then Bran says, "But my father beat him. I've heard the story 1,000 times." And Bloodraven's like, "Did he?" And then of course we see Howland Reed save Ned, which is what we all knew in the first place. So I'm not sure why the show is making it out like Ned apparently lied to Bran and the kids telling these stories 1,000 times back in Winterfell when they were growing up. We all knew that Howland Reed saved Ned Stark, and that's the only reason he's alive, because Sir Arthur Dayne was one bad motherfucker. So other than the fact that they cut off the second half of the Tower of Joy scene, I didn't really dig the fact that they kind of put that in there and made it like, you know, Bran was lied to, or Ned would somehow make a story up like he beat the best swordsman in history. Oh well, we did get to see the baddest fight in Game of Thrones history. Now what's interesting here is when Bran got back to the cave, he told Bloodraven, "Hey, he heard me." So this tells me we may have got a little answer here about the entire Hodor issue that broke the internet last week. If Bran can possibly change the past, or at least affect events in the past, what if he or Bloodraven is the one responsible for Hodor being who he is? What if at some time in an upcoming episode he sees Hodor in the past in a vision and perhaps works into him in the past and is responsible for Willis's IQ loss? So Bloodraven basically confirms here they will be leaving the tree. He's not going to stay there. He's not going to be an old man in a tree like Bloodraven, but he says to Bran, "Before you leave, you have to learn." And he's like, "What?" "Everything." And then we flash over to Dany as she's headed towards Vaes Dothrak, and apparently the Dothraki have upgraded horse statues. We saw in season 1 these were completely different horse statues in Vaes Dothrak, but you know, HBO's got a bigger budget now. So she's taken to the Dash Kaleen, and the head crone basically starts this ceremony where they strip her down, give her some fresh Dash Kaleen clothing. That's for you, Corin. To apparently start some kind of ceremony to where she becomes a member of the Dash Kaleen, but apparently she broke the rules. When Khal Drogo died, she went out into the world and became her own woman, and that's kind of a no-no apparently. So the head crone tells Dany, "You broke the rules, and all the cows are now here together in Vaes Dothrak for CalCon 2016. And apparently during CalCon, they decide which cities are going to be sacked and what tribes are going to be enslaved. And of course, this is all against Dany's anti-slavery policy. So this is definitely going to set her up at odds with these crones, although she will bond with a few people like Val and I said in our prediction videos, and I think she will proof herself with fire. And maybe some blood. And then we head over to Meereen, and we had Varys here in the throne room, and he brings in the lady from the brothel we saw last season, where the Unsullied guy went to just lay with the girl and he got killed, and calls her Vala, I believe, and basically says, "You know what, I know what you've been doing, I have your son, here's what you're going to do. You're either going to die for helping the Harpies kill the Queen's soldiers, or you're going to tell me what you know, and you're going to get on this ship with your son and head over and have a new life in Pinto." So this is basically how he finds out the information about who's funding the Harpies when we go up to a scene with Tyrion and Grey Worm and Missandei, and I didn't really like this scene at all. They've kind of reduced Tyrion, at least temporarily, to kind of comic relief. It didn't really work here. They were all awkward, and it was supposed to be awkward, I suppose, as if Tyrion has never spoken to Grey Worm or Missandei the entire time he's been there. So they made this scene kind of odd, and it didn't really serve any purpose. I would have rather seen Varys and Tyrion working together with Missandei and Grey Worm perhaps to get the information that Varys got alone. And somebody get Varys a new pair of shoes.
What are those?
But anyway, as we've all suspected in the first place, all the enemies that are funding the Harpies are in Yunkai and Astapor and Volantis, and they have to find a way to kill them all. But I don't think they're going to do that until Dany gets back with a little more help. And then we head over to King's Landing, and we see Qyburn in here with all Varys' little birds trying to recruit them like all pedophiles do with candy. So apparently the key to power in this entire world is sugared plums. And then Frankenmountain walks down the stairs and scares the little children, and Cersei and Jaime magically appear, and then they have a discussion about, "I want you to send little birds everywhere into Dorne, the north. I want to find out everything there is to know. Anybody that says a word about their queen walking through the streets with shit all over, I want to know who they are so we can kill them." Jaime makes a joke about the mountain, and he looks over and scares the shit out of him. But what's interesting here is after Cersei tells Qyburn, "I want you to do all this shit with all your little birds," Qyburn kind of gives her a look of disdain here, like he's still pulling the strings on the mountain, so what's he up to? I don't think he really serves Cersei. And then Cersei and Jaime and Frankenmountain go up to the small council, where now we have Sir Kevan Lannister serving as Hand of the King. They interrupt the council meeting as Pycelle's running his trap. Basically, this is setting up tension between Kevan Lannister and Cersei because he doesn't recognize her as queen anymore. Jaime insists that as the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, he does have a seat on the small council, and they argue this, and they say, "Well, fuck you then, you won't leave, we will," and they take off. And I wanted Frankenmountain to go ahead and just choke Pycelle right there. But before they leave here, Jaime does mention that the women that killed Trystane, apparently they know now, have taken over Dorne. So they already know apparently that the Sand Snakes are loose. I don't know if they're still in King's Landing or if they used that Star Trek transport to get back to Dorne already. And the other very interesting thing here that I think confirms the Tower of Joy, Kingsguard being Gerald Hightower, is Pycelle, while he was running his trap, did mention that Gerald Hightower used to have a seat on the small council. So that tells me that even though Bloodraven and Bran didn't call him by name at the Tower of Joy flashback part 1 of 2, that was in fact Gerald Hightower and not Oswald Wint. And then we have a quick scene with the High Sparrow praying as Tommen comes in, and Tommen's a little pissy here. And this High Sparrow's a hypocrite. He's full of shit. He's basically telling Tommen here, you know what, your mom's got to stand trial. All that shit I put her through is not enough, and he's pissed off about it, but he gets him to calm down as they about go to blows with the Kingsguard and the Sparrows, and then he sits Tommen down to have a nice little talk and basically starts the conversion process. And then we head over to Braavos, and Arya and the Waif are playing the game of faces, and they keep flashing back between them sparring while she's still blind and playing the game of faces, but she's getting better and better at this game and also getting better and better at her training. She's starting to now block or parry a lot of the Waif's attacks and even getting in a few blows here and there completely blind. But overall still getting her ass whipped, but somehow she still has teeth. And apparently she's learning to train with her other senses as well. She plays this game where she sniffs some powders and potions perhaps, and is trying to mix the right one while completely blind while Jaqen looks on. I'm thinking here to win this game, she's probably got to pick his favorite flavor of Gatorade. But basically we see that the Waif is getting jealous here as Arya is getting better and Jaqen's looking on. So then Jaqen takes her to a different room in the House of Black and White where she's sitting in front of this giant werewood face, and he says, hey, tell me your name and I'll give you your sight back. She says no one. He says, come over here and drink some of my Gatorade, and she drinks it, and all of a sudden she's got her sight back. So that was pretty damn quick for the season as far as getting her sight back. The problem here is they didn't show any ability of warging. I'd said this in previous videos and Q&As. This was the perfect time while she was still blind to introduce Arya as being a warg, to warg a cat or a rat or any damn thing, but apparently they're not going to do it at all. And the Waif still got that damn haircut. And then we go back to the north in Winterfell, and Ramsay is sitting here with Harry and Karstark, and apparently they're like buddy-buddy now. And they're basically talking about fighting the wildlings and Jon Snow, leading them because they've heard that Jon Snow led him through the wall apparently. And we have Small Jon Umber. House Umber is now here, and Small Jon did in fact bring Ramsay a gift to show his loyalty apparently because he didn't want to kneel. Unfortunately, it's going to be as I predicted. It's Osha and Rickon, and damn it, they've already fucking killed Shaggy Dog. Come on, man, don't kill the damn wolves. I can kind of handle the kid being out of the way because I understand they got to make room for Sansa being Queen of the North. So now we only have 3 direwolves left from our original story, and that is Ghost, Nymeria, and of course Summer. Rickon and Osha will probably be on the burning crosses at some point. And finally we head back towards the wall, and Jon is now up and moving around. He's had a bowl of Wheaties, and he is now kind of back in Lord Commander mode. So he walks out in the yard, and basically they have Alistair Thorne, Ollie, Bowen Marston, the other guy who was on the council, I guess what's left of the mutineers, standing up and ready to be hanged. They have nooses around their necks. So basically he's giving them a chance to say their last words before he hangs them. And you know, I said last week, you know, I want him to kill Alistair Thorne at least because I thought Ollie would be on some weird redemption arc with the wildlings. But I gotta say, since I've been thinking about it, you know, Alistair Thorne was a Targaryen supporter before he joined the Night's Watch. I think that would have been really kind of cool for him to stick around for a little while, realize Jon's a Targaryen, and then say, oh damn, you know, I've been hating on this kid the whole time and he's a damn Targaryen. But anyway, Jon turns around, pulls out Longclaw, and he cuts the damn rope and turns around, watches them hang, and seems to kind of enjoy it. And like I said before, I kind of understand where Ollie is coming from, being that his parents were murdered by the wildlings and the Thins, although in the book it was the Thins that murdered his family and not Tormund Giantsbane and crew. I'd said he might have been on some weird redemption path, you know, as far as hanging out with the wildlings last video, but I'm happy to say I was wrong. Fuck you, Ollie. Bye, bitch. Jon is going to be a slightly different person and basically the same character like I said before, but now that he's seen nothing, again, he's going to live life to the fullest and kind of live in the moment and kind of go for things. And he proves this when he hands Ed over his cloak and says, you have Castle Black. Then he walks off and says, my watch is ended, and drops his damn mic and gets the hell up out of there. So he is free of the Night's Watch, free of his vows, and now he's going to leave and take care of business in the north. So anyway, guys, overall, this was a pretty good episode, although there was a few disappointing moments. I think this was kind of a roller coaster ride for me. I did enjoy the Tower of Joy the most as far as what I did like, except for the second half is still missing, although I did expect them to kind of drag that out just a bit. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. How would you rate this episode? Were you happy to see the Tower of Joy scene? What did you think of Sir Arthur Dayne and his fighting skills being that legendary? I think for me, this was the first time in the show that they've talked somebody up like Sir Barristan Selmy, but actually followed through and showed how badass he really was. So overall, I was relatively happy with the episode. It did move the story forward, I guess, but there were a couple parts that were kind of unnecessary, although they seem to be moving pretty fast as far as this story goes. But anyway, let me know what you think. I will be doing another Q&A this week. In the meantime, you can click here for the last video I did, which was a Q&A that James and I did from Daily Use of Sports Trivia, where he reads all questions from you guys from the episode 2 review. And if you missed the episode 2 review, you can also click here to check that out. And that was from last week's episode when Jon did come back, which was pretty damn hype for me. So check that out. Let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for all the support, you guys. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.